Hello, welcome to Papa C's Barbecue and Kitchen, and welcome to our introductory to bread making. Hey, in this series, we'll be doing a variety of bread. We will be looking at traditional kneaded bread, we'll be looking at no-knead breads, we'll be looking at breads using different types of flours, self-rising flours, uh, non-yeasted breads, quick breads, just a variety. So hang on, let's get started. So let's talk a little bit about making bread. So why do we need bread? Well, the purpose of kneading bread is to form gluten. That's the sole purpose. The more the dough is moved, the more gluten that will be developed in the dough. This produces gluten strands, and the gluten strands will help build the structure in your bread. That is what holds the gases that the yeast produces. And that in the end is what makes dough rise. All right, so let's talk about the no-knead method. What is the no-knead method? The no-knead method is a method of baking bread that uses a long fermentation period to form the gluten strands that give the bread its structure and its ability to rise. The fermentation mimics the result of kneading the dough. The longer the fermentation, the better it tastes and the better the structure of the bread. The fermentation period can be up to 24 hours, usually 12 to 24 hours, and most people consider overnight, a good way to do it and the best. Also, the temperature of the water can be adjusted and adjusted upward to speed up the process and to allow for same-day baking. We will be doing basically exactly that with our first loaf that we bake, just to facilitate getting it all done in one day. All right, guys, so let's take a look at some of the equipment we may or may not need. All right, folks, so here in front of us, we have some of the equipment we may need, and some of it's not totally necessary, but would be nice to have. I think I'll start with, first mixing. Here are the bowls I have. This is a set of 4 mixing bowls. I use glass. You wouldn't necessarily have to use glass. I use it mainly because it's clear and the viewer can see into a little bit better what I'm doing. This is 4 different sizes. Ultimately, I think a 2.5 to 4 quart bowl, bucket, whatever you're going to mix in, is sufficient. These do have lids. You do need to be able to cover it when you're proofing, what have you. You don't necessarily have to have lids, but that's where cling film, plastic wrap, whatever you want to call it, excuse me, will come in handy. I also have here, I don't have my cling film out, but this is parchment paper. That can be very helpful. Back to measuring, you're going to need something to measure with. So I use these 2 items here. I have a smaller 2-cup mixing cup, and then this is a 2-quart mixing, more of a mixing bowl, big, but it's also very heavy, so not necessarily need glass. I wish I had a plastic one actually, because that one is so heavy. Additional measuring items, you're going to need some measuring cups. I prefer this style here, the stainless steel cups. It's just easier to level off and what have you. And then a set of measuring spoons. I keep this is my baking set. I keep this, and this all inside of here. So right with my mixing bowls. So when I'm going to make bread, I grab this and I grab this, which has all this stuff in it, and it comes out with me, and I'm ready. I pretty much got what I need. You're also going to need something to mix with. I have a few items here. Plain old spatulas, silicone, work well for getting the dough out of the bowl. Some kind of deal to mix with. Here's a wooden one. These are my favorite. I love spurtles. I use them in all my cooking, not only my baking, but this is what I pretty much stir up my dough with. Yeah, I love these things. And then a bench scraper. I have this here, but I also have a plastic scraper, which is very, very handy, pulling the dough out of the bowl when you're when you're getting ready to knead and all that. I don't know where the hell that went. I've been looking all over for it all morning. And then you're going to need some knives to cut your bread with. Here's one style of bread knife, serrated like that. And then this is another one that works well for me. These aren't real expensive items, but I will say if you're going to buy one, get one that's probably at least 14 inches long. That way you can saw all the way across through your bread as you're cutting up your bread. Anyway, this is just a basic list of items you may or may not need, not everything. And as far as this stuff here goes, I would suggest that you at least have one of these. But as far as mixing, you can always use these things. All right, guys, so now it's time to take a look at actual baking vessels, apparatuses. This is what we're going to bake our bread in. All right, guys, so let's take a look at some of the baking vessels that you may use or not use. Let's start up here in the corner. We have baking tins. These are your loaf pans. Variety of sizes. These are 2-pound loaves pans. They come in 2 pounds, pound and a half, 1 pound loaf pans. I think I don't have anything but 2 pounds right now. I think most of mine are, in fact, all mine are metal ones, either stainless steel or metal. I don't have any cast iron baking loaf pans yet, but that is on my list. Next to that, this is primarily what I use to bake my bread in, and that is Dutch ovens. This is in front of us here is the Lodge 5-quart Dutch oven. Lots of bakers use this particular one right here. That's a 5-quart, and that will work for your basic loaf. Sometimes you're going to want smaller loaves. This is one of my smaller ones that I also use. I believe this is a 2-quart, 2.5 quart. So yeah, Dutch oven baking is very, very popular. I do a lot of that. A lot of my no-knead stuff goes right in one of these things. Then we always have the ability to just shape our loaves and bake them on a tray. Parchment papers, where this comes in again, you would want to line that with parchment paper. So that's the basic. There are a lot of other ones out there, some very expensive specialty type deals. Here's a couple of my other cast iron. These are more what I would call specialty items. These are basically for doing muffin type stuff, English muffins, cupcakes, cornbread, and we will be doing that kind of stuff too. So that's a few of that. And then in the end, when you're done baking your bread, you need a cooling rack to set it on. This is the one I use. My wife gave me this, and it works really well. Allows for some pretty good airflow and stuff to cool the bread off. So this is my basic setup. I have quite a few different Dutch ovens to use. I do want to add some additional loaf pans, and there's some other specialty bakers out there for doing baguettes and that kind of thing. I will be getting some of those because we will be doing that on the channel. Anyway, that's a look at some of the baking vessels. All right, guys, let's take a look at what we're going to make our bread out of: flour and yeast. All right, guys, so here we have, this is what we're going to make our bread with. Well, actually, a couple other ingredients. We're going to have water, of course, and some salt, and sometimes some olive oil or other oil. But here's the main ingredients. We'll start off with bread flour. I use the bread flour 90% of the time when I'm baking bread. Can you use all-purpose flour? Yes, you can. Will it be the same as if you use bread flour? No, it will not. The difference will be if you bake your bread using all-purpose flour, basically it's going to be a smaller loaf. It's not going to have the same structure, and it's going to be much denser and heavier, where the that's what bread flour is designed to make bread with. And it'll give a much better structure, airy, light. It just makes a beautiful loaf. But you absolutely can make bread using all-purpose flour. Whole wheat flour. Some people use it in full strength. I usually, when I do a whole wheat loaf, I'll use a cup of that, or half wheat and half bread flour. There's all kinds of different recipes out there and what have you. I went ahead and included this cornmeal. If you're making English muffins, you use some cornmeal in that process. And if you're, which we will be doing, we'll be doing some cornbread. You absolutely need cornmeal. It's used in other stuff as well. That's all I have right now on hand as far as different flours. There are others. There's rye flour. We will be making some rye bread. And other than that, we have our yeast. This is what I use. I use the Red Star jarred there. And I also have some different, this isn't all I have, but some sachets. I believe these are the 7-ounce or 7-gram packets of yeast. So basically, this is what I use and what most bakers use as far as flours and what have you. So anyway, that's it. All right, guys, thanks for watching the video. Enough yakking. Let's make some bread. Let's move on to part 2. Just click the link.